Hello and welcome back to the MLB DFS Slate breakdown for Tuesday, June 4th. We're back. We're breaking it down. We got a big slate today. I believe it is 10 games on both sites. And before we get into it, what we will do, we'll go over yesterday's perfect lineups, then the winning lineups, and then we will get into today's slate, the pitchers to consider, stacks to consider, and then hopefully we all make a lot of money. Now, let's get into the slate a little bit. And before we do, please like, comment, and subscribe to the video. Helps a ton. Just improve our reach a little bit so I can keep giving all this stuff out for free. Now, let's get into the slate. Let's have some fun. 10 games on DK and 10 games on DraftKings. Back to the 4:05 Pacific time start. And let's get into this slate. We got Lou Gill, 10.8K, highest owned at 27% owned. Lou Gill's price is getting up there. I gotta say that. He has gone from mid sevens to almost 11K with, in about a month. Pretty wild, but he's been pitching amazing, 2.6 FIP over his last 5, almost a 33% K rate. Over the last 20 starts, he's had a 3.42 FIP and a 2.52 ERA and a 30% K rate. He has been extremely good, all the way since, 2001. He didn't pitch in 2023. Only had one start in 2022, but regardless, he has been extremely good. So I get why people want to go there. He is versus the Twins, though. 325 WOBA versus righties, 184 ISO. So they are good versus righties. They hit the ball hard. They strike out a decent amount at 23% at least. So we do have a 27.3% combined K rate. I'm not trying to talk you off of Lou Gill. He has been absolutely great. I'm probably going to have a little bit, but I'm not going to go overboard. I think his price is just getting up there a little bit, but the upside is there to warrant the price. So I'm fine still going there. Don't mind it. One thing I will mention about the Twins is it does look like Royce Lewis has been activated. So that lineup is getting tougher, and it was already pretty tough. So next we got Shata Amanga. Look, White Sox aren't very good versus lefties. 25.2% K rate versus lefties, 0.254 WOBA, 0.124 ISO. Shata's been extremely good as well. He just doesn't have quite as much of the K upside. So for that reason, I understand why we only have a 2.1 projection on him, but he is in a very, very good matchup. We have a 23.4% combined K rate. So his upside is not quite as high as Gill. However, I think that there is more opportunity for him to reach the upside in this, where it's going to be hard for Gill to, max out his upside versus a good offense. So I could see you going with either one of these. To talk about this weather situation, right now it does look like they're fighting two different weather storms, or two different rainstorms here, and the game should be in between the two, but with how far out it is, we obviously have to look at weather when we get a little bit closer. As of now, I am not that worried about the weather situation, but anything can happen. I should also note, because it's in Wrigley, the winds are blowing out to left at a decent clip, which definitely hurts Shata, and that shows from a 9.5 game total here. Next, Jack Flaherty. If there's anybody that has the upside of Lou Gill on this slate, it is Flaherty. Now, obviously, Texas is a very good lineup. However, they have struggled a little bit in the short term. Only hitting 209, 160 ISO. They only have an 18.5% K rate, but Flaherty's striking out at 33.3%. Combined K rate almost 26% at 9.2K is at least interesting. Skubal did decent yesterday. He just wasn't able to get the win, but I don't mind running back with Flaherty in this spot versus the Rangers. Rangers are obviously a good team. If you look at the splits over the last 150 days, 185 ISO, 328 WOBA. So that is similar to, what Minnesota is doing, where I said Lou Gill's in a tough matchup. So it is a tough matchup, but Texas hasn't been great in the short term. I'm interested. Another spot where I'm not going all in. Next, we got Max Fried, 9K, 2.6X. I really like this spot for Fried. One, we got wind blowing in Fenway. He's been just terrific lately. 3.22 FIP over his last 5, 3.58 over his last 20. Only a 22% K rate, but the thing I got to bring up is how efficient he's been. Going 8 innings, 6 Ks, 9 innings, 9 Ks, 7 innings, 5 Ks, 7 innings, 7 Ks, 6 and 7, 9 innings, 6 Ks. He's been working super deep into games. And with that, I think he absolutely deserves some consideration here. Boston's striking out a ton versus lefties. They're not good versus lefties. Fried's averaging 50% more fantasy points away. I think the 23.1% combined K rate is a little lower than his actual output due to the fact that, his K per 9 output. The reason I say that is because he actually works deeper into games than most guys. And I shouldn't say the K per 9 because that's very similar to the K rate. I should say his Ks per game. And the reason being is that he works deeper into the games than most. Most people struggle to get 6. This guy routinely right now is getting 7, 8 innings, and he has 2 complete games over the last month. So very intrigued by Fried, and I'm definitely probably going to get to some of him. Spencer Arrighetti, he's super cheap, and I could see you taking some chances here. Look, 3.75 FIP so far on the season, 3.95 over the last 5. But his FIP is way better than his ERA. It does show me that there is likely some regression to positive regression coming here. And I don't mind going here for a guy that has a 25.5% K rate. The combined K rate is 25.5. And St. Louis just isn't that great of an offense. Not versus righties, not versus anybody right now. I don't mind taking some. I do have to point out they have been better in the short term over the last 20 games versus righties. 267 average, 183 ISO, 340 WOBA. So they have been good in the short term versus righties. The long term aspect is where they look good. Now, this is a spot that I do not mind playing both. Like I said, short term, they've been hitting well. We talked about them hitting well for the last, few shows lately. So I don't mind getting some of them. I also don't mind getting some Arrighetti in different lineups on DraftKings where you need 2 pitchers. George Kirby, the big thing here, he's averaging 71% less fantasy points away. This has been something that has bothered him, for years now. And Oakland's actually been good versus righties. They're also hitting 400 off Kirby, and the weather in Oakland is going to be like 80 degrees today. So I think that there's a lot of factors against Kirby. Now, he is a very good pitcher, and he's cheap right now, so I don't mind if you want to get a little bit of him. Just don't make him your highest owned pitcher in my mind. Dane Dunning's interesting spot for me. So Dunning has these wild games where he gets 10 Ks, gets 7 Ks. He only has a 24% K rate over his last 20 starts. However, it's up to 32.6 over his last 5. And he has these just monster performances every now and then. Most of the time they come at home, which he is at home. And he's versus an offense that's striking out 22%. Not great versus righties, 304 WOBA. They haven't been good versus Dunning. So I'm very intrigued here. I think this is a spot where I might be trying to get a little more Dunning than an optimizer would allow me. Reason being is just he has those huge upside games. He's going low owned. So I'm intrigued on a slate where there's really only a handful of pitchers and I really like. So he is definitely one of my low owned guys that I'm going to try and get some of. It's very interesting. 27% combined K rate at 7.9K. Just doesn't happen that much, especially against an offense that's not that great. Patrick Sandoval, there's just not much upside versus the Padres, and he hasn't been pitching great lately, so I'm probably not going there. Patrick Corbin, he's been pitching really, really well lately, so I'm not taking him off my list, but I do have big-time concerns of his strikeout upside in this spot. So over the last 150 games versus righties, Toronto striking out at 20.8%, but over the last 20, that's down to 17.8%. Combined K rate's only 20% at 10K. That's just not high enough. He's got to be pitching exceptional to really get you the scores you need at 10K. Can he do it? Absolutely. He does have that in his bag that he can do that. I just can't rely on that in this spot versus a Toronto team that is good versus righties. Absolutely can have a little bit. Just don't go overboard because major concerns of his upside in this spot. Another cheapie that I'm a little bit intrigued in is Mitch Spence. Look, he went 98 pitches last time out, so he looks like he's fully stretched out. 3.56 FIP over his last 20 starts here. So 37 innings were taken into account there. 21% K rate. So not super high K rate, but StatCast data looks good. Seattle strikes out a ton. Seattle's not great versus righties. They do hit righties hard. They could make some home runs happen here, but at least it's a pitcher-friendly park. And the combined K rate is a little bit high at 6.5K. He's a dart throw that could pay off versus a Seattle team that can just absolutely be ignored or just put up duds some games. So it's not the worst pick in the world. I want to talk about Frankie Montas, not because I really want to use him, more so because he allows a lot of fly balls in Colorado. Colorado is going to be a stack that people are interested in. I do have to say there's one major thing about today versus yesterday as far as the hitting weather there. Yesterday, the winds were kind of right to left. Today, they're a little bit more from right center coming in. So I think it was right center. Could have been, maybe left center. Regardless, the wind is coming in more than it was yesterday. Yesterday was a little bit more, a cross field wind. So that is going to keep the ball in the park a little bit more. Those fly balls will not be as dangerous, even though the weather is still warm. The ball will still fly. It is warm weather. It is Colorado, but probably doesn't fly quite as well as yesterday. Still, a lot of room for this game to blow up. And while I don't want Montas, I don't mind some Colorado. Baylor Ober versus Yankees, tough matchup. Crawford hasn't been pitching well lately. But Atlanta hasn't been hitting well. So it's kind of just, if I get a little Crawford, that's fine. But I want very little of him. And pretty much down the board, that's how it is. Ty Block versus Cincinnati. He's a ground ball pitcher, but he allows a ton of hard contact. I'm absolutely fine with getting some Cincinnati stacks. Now, let's get over to FanDuel. Check that out a little bit here. pitchers, high owned, we got Max Fried. I think he should be the highest owned on the slate. I think he should be the highest owned on DraftKings as well. So not too surprised by that. Shota next, 10.5K, 27% owned. And then Lou Gill at 18% owned. It's probably how it should be. One thing I do want to note is all three of these pitchers are pay-up options. 11K, 10.5, 9.9K. Dunning is out of that pay-up option. He's more of a mid-range pitcher. I'm absolutely interested in going to Dunning on this slate in this spot. It's just going to get you different from a lineup construction standpoint so much because, you know, if, say, 70% of the field is paying up a pitcher, you have 2K more than everybody else to spend. So definitely intrigued with some of him. Also intrigued by Flaherty. And I don't like Arrighetti as much here on FanDuel. Reason being is he has 2 games of being able to go 6 innings, and we really want him to be able to get that quality start and win bonus here on FanDuel. Now, I'm fine with getting a little bit, but I'm just not trying to get to very much of him, and that is my issue with him is the ability for him to get that win bonus. So, all in all, I think FanDuel's pitching is interesting. I think the 3 highest owned guys should be the 3 highest owned guys, but I have major interest in Dunning, Flaherty. Don't mind if I get a little bit of Corbin and Arrighetti. Now, let's get into the stacks. So, Cincinnati, Colorado, highest game total. Arizona and Giants at 9.5. You got to look at that. And Cubs, White Sox, 9.5. So there are several games today that can compete with this Cincinnati, Colorado game total. So I think it does change the slate up a little bit. The other thing here is Trevor Richards, 5.26 FIP over his last 20 versus this Baltimore offense that we know is extremely good. Very intriguing when they are going super, super low owned. Partially because they're expensive and it looks like people are paying up for pitching. Now, highest owned. Highest owned is Cincinnati. Not too surprised with this one. Now, they are still very expensive. Ellie De La Cruz, 6.5K. Steer is 6K. Kind of insane. If people are trying to pay up at pitching and get some Cincinnati, their secondary stack is going to be bottom of the barrel. So I think it limits upside big time if you're trying to go to an expensive Cincinnati stack. So just be wary of that. But I love the spot. Ty Block just frankly isn't good. Cincinnati's in Colorado. They crushed yesterday. They can absolutely crush again today. Don't mind that at all. All right, Chris Flexen versus the Cubs. Love that spot. Flexen isn't great. However, in the short term, he does have 3.98 FIP over his last 5 versus a 4.89 over his last 20. So he's been pitching better in the short term. But we got home run wins in Wrigley. Definitely intrigued with some Cubs. Their stacks are way cheaper than Cincinnati too, so it might make some pay up for pitching options a little bit easier. Now, let's get into the highest projected. And we got Cincinnati all over. Houston is popping up also versus Andre Palanta. Houston's been hitting the ball well, so I'm fine with going there. I do have to say, though, that Kyle Tucker, I would say it's their best hitter, definitely so far this season, is going to be very questionable. He left the game yesterday with a shin injury. ball went off his shin. Don't know if he's going to play. If he's out, that lineup looks way worse. So definitely pay attention to that. Next, Yankees popping up against Bailey Ober. Ober can get crushed. So he can have some major upside, but he can get crushed, and that Yankees offense is working. So definitely a little intrigued with the Yankees as well, and they're going a little lower owned. Next, let's go to value. Highest value, we got St. Louis. They've been hitting the ball well. Spencer Arrighetti is been getting tagged. His FIP is decent, but that ERA is high. And he keeps getting unlucky. Maybe he keeps getting unlucky. Another game gives up 5-6 runs to a cheap Cardinal stack that's hitting and has some power, can hit the ball over the fence. Oakland versus Kirby. Kirby's way worse on the road, so got to have some intrigue there as well. Now let's check the ceiling before we click teams to get that full overview of what's going on here. New York Yankees all over that ceiling, and I'm not that surprised. They got power. They can definitely get to Ober. Trevor Richards versus Baltimore is popping up, and I'm intrigued on all of them. Angels versus, I'm not sure. It does look like the Padres will have their one of their top prospects coming up to pitch today. He is the number 5 in the Padres org. He is decent, but it's going to be his debut, so who knows. Having a little bit Angels is fine, but that Angels offense seems to have fallen off quite a bit lately. Now, let's click good old teams here and see what we got. All right, so the highest implied total, Cincinnati and Cubs, followed by Colorado, Arizona, Houston. Cincinnati has a 5.8 implied total versus the Cubs 5.5. No surprise, those two are the highest owned. Both the bullpens they're going against aren't very good. Anti-blocks allowing a high average hard contact and high average exit velocity. Colorado, Montas hasn't been great. Allows a high average exit velocity. At least the bullpen's decent. And then you have Arizona versus Kyle Harrison, who Harrison can be great, but then can also get absolutely shelled. So I understand wanting some Arizona in Arizona. Houston versus Palante. That's fine. Palante's been decent. Houston offense is good. I do really like that Baltimore offense going low owned. And then Padres, Angels, both interesting. Braves, Cutter Crawford hasn't been that good, and Braves crush lefties. So intriguing for sure. They just haven't been that good lately. And Yankees, you can always go Yankees right now. So, interesting slate as a whole. Wish you guys the best of luck. We will be back tomorrow. And let's make some money. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Come join us at LineStar. Have a good one, guys. Peace.